So that's interesting that you say that. Why are authors submitting sci-fi and fantasy books, which we know are cash cows that immediately will make someone wealthy and famous forever? Why?
Because people publish them. Because people publish them. That's one of the big challenges of this industry, is that we're getting books that are just the same story over and over because people are buying them, because we're not giving the people anything else to buy. If you look in big, I'm not going to name any names because that's a bridge I don't quite want to burn yet. But if you look on, go into big bookshops, especially chain stores, it's all the same kind of book on the shelf. And yes, most of them should be there. I completely, not taking anything away from the authors who write them, because usually the stories are fantastic. But there's a duty of care within the industry as well that isn't always as meticulous as it should be, But why aren't people bothered about reading diverse voices? Coming back to that, people don't read books with this kind of character or that kind of character. It's like, it's not that they don't read them. First of all, have you seen fan fiction? Why do you think that appears in the first place? It's not just about, I want to play in this world. A lot of it is to do with marginalized voices who want to see themselves in writing, and fan fiction gives them a safe space to do that. But it's also about the fact that it's not that people don't want to buy the books, it's that there are no books to buy. And I think that is changing now slightly. But yeah, so I'll get down off my soapbox now, sorry.
No, stay up there. What else should publishers do better?
We would literally need a triple espresso for that conversation, I think.
Fair enough. Come back, we'll have that chat. So okay. You get the submission, you say, this is the book I've been looking for. I'm excited. Do you call Dorothy? Do you email her? What happens next from there?
So from there, it's an email. So first of all, it's the first 2 chapters. Then it's the full manuscript. Before I send over a publishing contract, I request a Skype call, because Inspired Quill is such a small publisher, micropress really. I've got to get on with the people I publish effectively, and they have to really understand the Inspired Quill ethos. So, for example, I would never publish someone who is, I don't know, homophobic, for example. And obviously sometimes that doesn't always come out in the writing. So, having a word with the author.
Excuse me.
Yes, there's a lot of throat clearing with that name. But yeah, so it's really interesting how, sometimes you just really hit it off with an author, and other times you don't. And then I have to think long and hard about, can I work with this person? Sometimes with submissions, I also get the lovely phrase, it's ready to publish. Ooh. You don't have to do anything to it. It's, publish it and you'll make £1 million. It's like, well, why don't you publish it then? So, working with an author that I can be collaborative with, which is incredibly important at Inspired Quill, working with authors rather than above them. So we had a Skype conversation. Everything went smoothly. And then I sent a blank copy of the Inspired Quill contract. And I said, I don't want to hear from you. Don't email me. Don't text me. Don't Skype me for a week. Because what I found in the past is authors get the contract and immediately sign it because they're so excited to have a publishing deal. So I stripped that away from them by giving them a blank contract, because they can't sign it because their stuff's not on it anyway. And I say, give this to your partner, your lawyer, your pet goldfish, your next door neighbor. If there's any questions that you have or any amendments that you want, let me know and we'll work through them. So transparency is incredibly important to me, and by extension, Inspired Quill. So that kind of sits for about a week. Then we get together again and have a discussion about that. And if we both still feel as though it's a project that we want to work on together going forward, then I get the author to sign the contract, and we start the process.
So Dorothy, after your pet goldfish looked things over and said, yes, this is good. What was your experience of the call, and what advice can you maybe give authors listening who are going to experience a similar call about how to smoothly get through that and not throw up any red flags, other than, of course, starting with, this book is ready, there's nothing you need to do, go ahead and publish it?
I guess I don't actually have advice. It seemed like a very easy call to me. It was like chatting, and I think, to me, the most important thing you can do in anything like that is to sound like a human being. That's true on Twitter. That's true every place. Sound like a person.
Absolutely.
You say, and I'm comfortable with being edited. I was an academic. I had to publish or perish with articles or things, and I actually edited a scholarly journal for several years, and taught copy editing. So I'm happy with having an editor. An editor an editor helps you, and so that's all fine by me. I sat down and read through the contract with a magic marker, highlighted the things that I wanted to be sure to pay attention to, consulted with my writer friends who had signed contracts, and then came back, and I don't think I changed anything. I may have asked a question or two, I just don't remember. But I may have asked about, I don't even remember. But you learn eventually to look at things like, when do your rights revert to you, stuff like that. And so it felt like an easy call to me. Did it feel easy to you, Sarah?
It did, but that's just because you're a wonderful human being, so that helps.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
There's the professional romance, I promise.
Yeah, there you go.
So, aside from Inspired Quill, whose contract obviously is beyond reproach, what are some things that maybe either of you have seen in contracts that you've looked at in the past that writers listening should be aware of? And Dorothy, I'll ask you to continue, and then Sarah, we'll get your input as well.
Well, for me, the reversion of rights was particularly important because I had a previous book come out with a small press, and that was fine. They were fine, and they were they had the book for about a year, and then they went out of business. They went belly up. I mean, and they're a small business. Life is tough for small businesses, and so it was really at that point my rights reverted to me, and I have heard horror stories from writers about having to pay to have the rights revert, about having to buy any copies that the publisher had, and I wanted to avoid that because I had just been in that situation. Now it turned out all right. The contract that I was working off of turned out all right. I went ahead and self-published that one because why not? It had a cover, it had been edited, put it up. But so I guess that was I can't even remember what else I looked at. I guess you're looking at whether royalties are a percentage of, what are the royalties a percentage of? How is that calculated? What is the base for that?
For the uninitiated, what's the good version we want to hear there versus the not so great version?
Well, I guess I think there's some flexibility there depending on how the whole thing reads. Sarah, do you want to say? I can't even remember. What does my contract say? I can't remember.
So yeah, the reversion of rights is a really big one, and at Inspired Quill, our contract basically says if you want your rights back, give us a month's notice, which, as far as I'm aware, doesn't really happen anywhere else. But it's kind of, so for me, the contract is not just about looping the author into something; it's about accountability from both sides. So there's that thing about the rights reversion, and in terms of the royalties, so in most of the industry, and actually with the bigger presses, it's a percentage of the RRP. So, for example, if your book is £10 or dollars, and your royalty percentage is 10%, then for every book that sold, you would get 10% of $10 as a flat amount. We're print on demand, which means that actually the cost per book, the amount per book that it costs us to send out actually differs book to book, which is completely infuriating because Excel spreadsheets are not my forte, but they've had to become my forte. So we actually do percentage of profit. So that could mean £4 per book. It could mean 50 pence per book. And it really can be that diverse. What I tried to do to make up for that is we have something called loyalty royalties. So for every year that the author is with Inspired Quill, their royalties increase by 5%. So I think now they start at 20% for paperbacks, and I want to say 35 or 40 for ebooks. For every year that the author is with us, they increase to 5% until they're earning 50% of paperback royalties and 75% of ebook royalties.
Is that increase for all books that the loyal author has with you?
Yes.
Or per book? Okay, great.
So for every book, so for the authors, for example, who have been with us for quite a while and have multiple books, that royalty is based for the author, not the individual book, just to make it fairer.